Hey guys! First off, I'm really sorry if you can hear any of the gale force winds happening outside my apartment right now. It's super windy today and there's not much I can do about that, obviously, so please ignore any of the background noise if there is any. So today I want to start what I hope will be a really fun series about some of my favorite places that I've visited while living in Japan. Of course, I've filmed these places before and shown some of my favorites, but I feel like I've never really talked about my personal opinions on them, or what my favorites have been, or more importantly, the practicalities of planning a trip there and getting around and that kind of thing. So I want to start a series talking about my favorite places in different categories. I think I'm going to do 3 categories. So I'm going to do nature places, historical and cultural places, and then cities. And in each of those categories, I'm going to talk about some of my favorites that I've been to, why they were my favorite, how to plan a trip and how to get around and things, some things that I really enjoyed seeing that I recommend, and then finally any tips or things that I noticed would be useful to know while I was there. So I really hope this is going to be an interesting and informative series. I'm actually really looking forward to talking about these places because I just love them, and I'm really hoping that this can help other people who are looking to travel around Japan a little bit. So let's get into the first one. The first place on my list is in the nature category, and that is Miyakojima. Miyakojima is a tiny, tiny island just off the coast of Okinawa, and it's basically just beaches. The reason why I really loved this place was because it's not nearly as touristy or as fast-paced as most places that I've been in Japan. In fact, it's definitely the most relaxing and casual place that I've ever been here, and I just loved that. It felt so peaceful, I guess is the right word. It just felt so nice to go somewhere and not have this checklist of tourist attractions that we needed to see before we left. We just did exactly what we wanted to do. It was very, very chill, very calming, and I really felt very refreshed when I came home, where usually I feel quite tired when I come home from a holiday because I've been doing so many things. But yeah, Miyakojima felt completely different from any other place I've been in Japan, and I really, really loved it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to get to Miyakojima and plan a trip there, kind of. Then I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did that I really recommend that you try if you want to go to Miyakojima. And finally, I'm just going to talk about some basic tips that I noticed would have been helpful for me to know before going there. So let's get into Miyakojima. Oh, and one more thing. During the video, when I mention places that I really loved or things that I enjoyed, I will be putting a card to my video that I made about it at the time, somewhere up here. So if you're interested in seeing more of what you can expect from Miyakojima, or you want to see the specific thing that I'm talking about, just click there and it'll take you to the video that I made when we went there. Okay, on with it. Of course, the first thing to talk about is how to actually get there. Because it's not super touristy, getting to Miyakojima is perhaps not as simple as some other places, but it's definitely not difficult. Peach Airlines do run a direct flight from Kansai to Miyakojima airport, so thankfully it does have an airport, and that's a very easy way to get there. That's how we did it. Although I do know that if you're already in Okinawa and you're looking to go to Miyakojima from there, there's also ferries that run to the island as well. Getting around once you're on Miyakojima is also a little bit less simple than it can be in other places in Japan. Public transport is few and far between and pretty unreliable, to be honest. Luckily, the island is so small that taxis aren't too much of an expense, and we basically just use taxis the entire time. So we got a taxi from the airport to our guest house where we were staying, and everything was fine. It's pretty easy to get there, to be honest. It's just not somewhere that has a lot of information about it on the internet, so I wanted to make sure that you guys know how easy it is to get there. It's not for me, I think the most difficult place I've got to in Japan was Zao Fox Village. That was really confusing, but we'll talk about that another day. So Miyakojima, getting there is pretty easy. Getting around, don't rely on the public transport. Do just get taxis. If you have any reservations, it's much, much easier. Now that you know how to get there, let's talk about accommodation. I think booking accommodation early for Miyakojima is really important. As I mentioned earlier, it's not a super touristy place, and that means that there's actually not that much accommodation available on the island. When Lena and I went, we almost missed out on booking accommodation entirely, which would have been obviously disastrous. So we ended up getting a place at Guest House Miyakojima, which was incredible. I can't recommend it highly enough. The staff were amazing and friendly and helpful, and they had all sorts of things that you could borrow from the guest house, like bicycles, surfboards, wetsuits, river shoes, snorkeling gear, all of that stuff. So that was really fantastic. But yeah, definitely get onto it early. There aren't that many places that you can actually stay, so you'll need to make sure that you have a place for yourself. Unlike we did. We got very, very lucky. Next, I want to talk about some places that I went that were really what made me truly fall in love with Miyakojima and the time that I spent there. So the first place that I absolutely recommend that you go is called Shigira Beach. So Shigira Beach is owned by the Shigira Resort, so it's a private beach, but you don't have to pay to go on there. It's free access to the public, so that's not a problem. We got a taxi there. Once again, I really don't think that there's public transport to this beach. The taxi really doesn't take very long from kind of central Miyakojima though. I mean, once again, the island is so small that anywhere you want to get a taxi to is not a huge deal. So Shigira Beach is a beautiful white sand beach with deck chairs and tents that you can rent if you're worried about getting sunburned or if you just want a place to chill. And when you swim out, there are some amazing coral formations, and more importantly, what truly made this a magical experience for me was that there are sea turtles that live at this beach. And they just randomly pop up and they can swim right beside you or right underneath you, and you can just watch them and they're right there. It was magical. No, like the thing is, I think what made it so magical is that no one told me. Like, it wasn't like the beach was advertised as like a sea turtle beach and that's why we went there. I went there to go snorkeling and have a look at some fish, but then the sea turtles just show up and they don't care about people at all. They're right there. They're so, so close. It was such a beautiful experience. I can't even explain to you. I think I must have had a grin plastered all over my face for like the rest of the day, and Lena probably thought I was really stupid, but to me it was just the most magical thing. So of course I will link to the footage of sea turtles and snorkeling generally around the Shigira area up here somewhere. Snorkeling is one of my favorite activities ever, and if you are also into snorkeling, Shigira is a really great place to do it. You don't have to swim too far to get out into some really awesome coral formations with incredible fish and sea life and just beautiful things. When we went, it wasn't super busy either. I'm not sure if this is usual or not, but definitely when we went, it wasn't very crowded at all. Yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. You can swim right around this little cove bay area. Really amazing. The one thing I would recommend, or two things I guess, is basically gear. So you can rent snorkeling masks and river shoes. You can rent snorkeling masks and river shoes from Shigira Beach. However, they are very, very expensive, obviously because they're at a premium if you forgot yours. So I really do recommend either bringing your own or borrowing some from the guest house or place that you're staying. I forgot river shoes, and the beach, as you get up to the water, the beach is made of like crushed up coral, which if you've ever walked on it, you know is really not very pleasant to walk on. So if you have river shoes, bring them or try to borrow them from the place that you're staying because they're quite expensive when you get there. So yeah, bring your own gear, have an amazing time snorkeling with fish and sea turtles, and just enjoy the beautiful views. The next place that we went that I really, really loved, and we spent an entire day there, was Miyahama Beach. So Miyahama is not a snorkeling beach, it's just like a swimming beach, but you can also rent like boat rides or water skis or jet skis and different things like that. So if you're into that kind of water sports stuff, then there's a lot of that there. But what we did is basically just swam all day, laid on the beach all day, just chilled, and we watched the sunset from there. It was incredibly beautiful. Once again, not a super touristy or like busy spot, which is fantastic. I really, really loved that. It felt much more, again, peaceful than a lot of the beaches that I've been to in Japan that are touristy spots. The sand is like perfectly white, the water is perfectly blue. It's like this amazingly picturesque beach, and especially as evening came and as the sun started setting, most people who were there just left, and it was basically just us and a couple of people on the pier, and it was just, again, so magical, really beautiful. Don't really bother bringing your snorkel here unless you're into looking at like blue water and sand. You also don't need river shoes for this one. The sand is really nice and soft, so it's not a problem. Yeah, I would recommend setting aside an entire day for both Shigira and Miyahama, just because I feel like on Miyahama you kind of just want to relax and chill and take things slow for the day, and with Shigira there's just so many things to see when you're snorkeling that I would definitely say take your time and just enjoy these things. Your whole trip to Miyakojima, or at least mine, was very slow-paced, which is kind of a contrast to a lot of the fast-paced trips that you can do around Japan and in the cities and things. And I really enjoyed that, so I do recommend, if you're looking to take this time to relax, just set aside an entire day for each activity. You won't regret it. It's just a nice way to take things at a bit of a slower pace than normal in Japanese life. And finally, let's talk about some basic tips and things that you might like to know before going to Miyakojima. I already talked briefly about the public transport situation. Honestly, I really think it's worth just taking taxis or cycling when you can, because the public transport, like, you'll have to work really hard to find a timetable, which are basically non-existent, and even when you find a timetable, the buses and everything don't really run on schedule anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. Lena and I decided on the first day that we would be better off just committing to take taxis the entire time. Because the island is so small, it's not a huge cost, and it's just worth it for less hassle and more consistent transportation, I think. So yeah. Taxis, cycling is also great. As I mentioned before, our guest house had bicycles that you could borrow, and that was fantastic. So when we wanted food or whatever, we would just cycle out to get some. Yeah, so don't rely on the public transport. Commit to taking taxis if you're interested in convenience. The next tip that I want to talk about is that the convenience of Miyakojima is much, much lower than most places you'll be used to in Japan. If you've traveled a lot in Japan, you're probably used to having convenience stores and supermarkets and restaurants all around the place. This is not the case in Miyakojima. You really want to take note of where your nearest supermarket or convenience store or restaurant is so that you know how to get back there. For Guest House Miyakojima, we ended up being like 25-30 minutes walk away from the nearest place to get any kind of food, and we hadn't realized that ourselves. So once we realized that, we ended up taking the bicycles back and just stocking up on food from the supermarket for the next few days, which worked out really well for us, and I would recommend that if you're not necessarily like restaurant type people, because there really aren't that many restaurants there. Just grab some food that you can make back at your guest house or your hotel. So we got some special Okinawa soba noodles, which was really fun. Yeah, so make sure that you're aware of where the amenities near you are, because there really aren't as many as you might be used to in other parts of Japan. That's about it for my experience and advice on traveling to Miyakojima. I really hope that this video has been helpful. Honestly, Miyakojima is probably my favorite place that I've been to in Japan, and I just loved it, and I hope this video helps you love it as well if you decide to go there. I'm really looking forward to making more videos in this series because I feel like I've had such an amazing time and have been so lucky to have so many opportunities to travel around Japan, and I hope to help other people enjoy it just as much as I have. As always, if you have any questions, please ask them below and I will do my best to answer them. And until next time, I will talk to you later. Bye!